The legal framework that we have in the European right now is focused on protecting individual rights, for example, the right not to be discriminated against. Artificial intelligence is a very blurry and in some ways misleading concept because it's a sort of like umbrella term for very diverse digital technologies. So it's not necessarily a thing, but more like a box that comprises things from facial recognition systems to something like ChatGPT, but maybe also a system that you can use to power a robot in a factory or something like that. As users of digital technologies, the Europeans are very dependent on what comes from other countries, and in particular from the United States and China. So we try to figure out what is a smart way of adjusting European policy about digital technologies and about AI in particular in order to deal with this dependence on the rest of the world. And this year, in 2024, the European Parliament and the European Council have finally adopted a legal framework, so an AI Act, a law about artificial intelligence in Europe that tries to put some guardrails around these technologies. And what it in particular tries to do is to make these technologies safe, but there is something else that it does not do that is also important and that it would have to do, ideally. And that is, it does not address the aggregate societal effects of introducing artificial intelligence throughout different sectors of society. So if we think about the relationship between artificial intelligence and inequality, I think there are several factors that play in here. The first thing that people tend to think of is the effect of AI on jobs. The basic idea that AI is the next wave of automation, and just like, say, robots maybe led to the disappearance of jobs in factories, say automobile factories, for example, that AI would do the same thing for people who work behind computers, effectively. These technologies are only now beginning to be applied commercially on a large scale, so many of these effects aren't really visible yet. There is a broad agreement that many jobs will be affected and can be affected and can partially be taken over by artificial intelligence technologies. The other aspect that I think is really important to keep in mind here is that AI also has the effect of further pushing, as it were, so like people in the labor market in two directions. There are some people who will find that AI systems will help them become more productive, better at what they do. So for people who already are relatively qualified, who have a unique position in the labor market, they may be able to boost their earnings and their welfare with something like AI. At the opposite end of the labor market, if you will, so think, for example, of people who work in a warehouse or something like that, there we'll see more a tendency of people effectively becoming the extended arm of an algorithm. It requires fewer and fewer skills from humans, so you don't need years and years of education to do the few remaining bits that the algorithm can't do. And that is something that will also be reflected in how these jobs are valued, how they're remunerated. So the expectation there is that the impact of AI on work will be different for people in different sectors and also different education levels, and that you'll probably see a pulling apart of different sectors, so where some aspects of work may generally become more pleasant and also well paid, but others definitely not. AI could in principle be used to make a whole range of different kinds of services more accessible. Having said that, I think it's also important to realize that there's a clear difference between what you could do with AI and what is actually being done. Because AI development is in the hands of companies, and these companies obviously have the goal, that's why they're companies, to earn money with the products that they develop, which means that they develop products for the people who can pay for them. So there is no money to be made by developing AI applications for people who don't have any money to begin with, because they just can't pay for it. And that means that, say, for example, ways in which we could use AI really to help people who are already at a disadvantage because they have learning problems, for example, because they have social problems, all these sorts of things, there isn't literally a great market for them. There's big demand, people could use that, but there's nobody there who could actually make a big business case out of these things. So in that sense, I think it's always important to keep in mind what is, in principle, possible to develop with these technologies and what's actually likely to be developed, given that it's in the hand of companies that want to earn money. I think the key thing that needs to happen now when it comes to how the EU deals with the coming AI transformation is that it effectively takes back control of the whole trajectory of how our societies digitize. What that means is you think not only about very specific impacts that AI technology has, so does it make traffic safer or not, or does it maybe create a little bit of discrimination here or there, but think much more broadly about what kind of society do we want to be, and what kind of place do we then want for digital technologies in our society such that people are more happy, that they're less stressed out, that there is less strife, anger, violence, polarization between people, that there is less inequality, that we create spaces in which people can genuinely thrive. That takes more than just putting some guardrails. That's more taking ownership of these technologies, trying to move them forward.